and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
As usual, we start our meeting with the silencing of the cell phones, devices, and all of the above. I leave the pack. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have anything to add, Mandy?
Madam Chair, there are no changes to the agenda, but I would like to note that you have a copy of a revised agenda item for the consideration of the award of the 2022 highway striping project.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And next is the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything off before we approve the consent agenda?
I'll move it. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And please remember to turn your mics on now that I remembered to turn mine on.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is public appearances. Do we have any public appearances today?
I do.
Good morning.
Good morning. I was down here in
What's
January.
your name?
We need your name for the record,
Oh.
and you need to speak into the mic so the tape picks you up.
Okay.
Sit down.
Welcome to kindergarten.
Is the mic on?
It should be.
Green light is green go. Yeah, my name is Mike Stevenson. I live over by Nicollet, and I'm here on behalf of the Nicollet Conservation Club. And the last time I was down here in January was with Jeff Holman, who runs the North Star Taxidermy Studio at Nicollet. He had approached me about if they would come down here and talk to the county commissioners about putting a ban on deer farms. Since then, I have went to the board, the planning and zoning. I guess why I'm here today is I want to make sure that I go through the proper channels, because we'd like to go back to the planning and zoning commission if that's possible. I know Dean Comfort was down here and he kind of put a kibosh to what we thought was going to happen, this moratorium. Is that possible to go back to the planning and zoning commission?
Certainly.
So that's what I kind of want to make sure it gets put on their agenda. Now, Mandy gave me a phone number. Do I call this guy to get put on, or do you guys do that?
You certainly can, or you can stop over and talk to him if he's in today.
Oh, yes, okay. The one thing John has mentioned to me a couple of times about we need to talk to Dean Comfort, the president of the Board of Animal Health. We've done that. This chronic wasting disease issue has been around for a while. And over at the Conservation Club in the fall of the year, we have this meeting where we invite down FWLA, that's an organization out of the cities, the Fish and Wildlife Legislative Alliance, and MOA, Minnesota Outdoor Heritage Alliance. These guys watch what's going on up at the Capitol during the session. They come down and we have a meeting. We're going to have one again this September. The last 2 years, we did not have any because of the pandemic. The year before that, there was a big chronic wasting disease issue up in Crow Wing County. We got Dean out there. But since then, really nothing has happened. The latest issue now is up in Beltrami County, where this deer farmer we got caught. His deer were dying. If you have deer that are dying, you're supposed to notify the proper authorities. He was taking them out on county property and just disposing them. How they found out about it, I don't know, but the Board of Animal Health has now got to work with the DNR because of the legislators decided this is something else needs to change here. They had to somebody had to come up with some money. They had to go out and fence in this area where these deer were disposed so that live deer couldn't get into where these carcasses had been. So it's an issue that's been out there for a while. We just can't seem to get anything done. And like this article that I gave John about how the House of Representatives had approved and sent it to the Senate, and they approved it too, where we would put a ban on no new deer farms until at least they get a live test, a test they can for chronic wasting disease on live deer, right now the deer has to be dead before they can test it. So, like I say, I just want to go through the proper channels to make sure I get on the agenda for the planning and zoning. Now, Marie, I have got a couple more outdoor newses here, because I know you're on, if you want to take a look at them.
They get delivered to my house too.
You get them at home?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll be darned, I'm impressed.
Well, we fish a lot at my house.
Pardon me?
We fish a lot at my house.
Okay. So that's kind of why I'm here. I'll walk over and talk to this guy. And any questions?
So Mike, would a whitetail, so the moratorium would be just on whitetail? Or would it be, I don't know nothing about deer to know, so you have to educate me. The moratoriums that you were talking about in St. Paul were on new whitetail deer farms.
Yes, white-tailed deer farms, yes. Yeah, and like John, I gave John a phone number, and he called this Craig Ingwall. He's the president of the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association, lives way up in Grand Rapids. And he's working with counties up there, and he said he'd come down and come to the meeting at the planning and zoning, and at that meeting I will make sure I get a hold of Dean. Let's get everybody there, figure out why we can't get something done.
Well, it sounds like the counties up north that are talking about a county moratorium are talking about a 1-year moratorium.
It would only be for 1 year at a time, yes. I think that's all you can put on is a 1 year moratorium.
Well, the state may come back, the legislature may come back in '23.
That would be perfect if that
Because the
happened.
bill was teed up, but they didn't pass anything, kind of.
Yeah, you know how, you were a representative, you know how it works up there.
That's why I'm saying I could see where a 1 year would at least get you back
Yeah,
to
and-
legislative session.
And like, I've gone to a couple meetings up at the Senate office building on this chronic wasting disease, and the state has come up with some money to give researchers at the U of M to try to find a live deer test, and they're working awful hard on that. If they could find one that's, true, the problem would be solved. Then you could test deer before you move them. But until that happens, they're just, deer hunting in the state is big, big business.
Yes.
And it's statewide. Anything else?
Jack?
Mike, thanks for being here. Did you realize that on June 20th that the topic came up at Planning and
I
Zoning?
had
and
no
why weren't you
idea.
there?
I had no idea, otherwise I'd have been down here.
Oh,
Because I was down here, it must have been the meeting before where,
Yeah.
was that the meeting before? I didn't realize, what does the planning and zoning have, 2 meetings a month?
No, one a month. It's always on the website, the agenda. and
See,
the
I don't have a
packet.
computer or a website or any of that kind of stuff. I'm really old-fashioned. I didn't even bring my cell phone in. Anyway, I didn't realize that, otherwise I would have been here. Because, I've kind of heard what Dean has to say, and there's two sides to every issue, but we got to figure something out here. The last thing we want is sick deer running around here. In parts of Wisconsin, they figure 40% of the deer herd is infected. 40%.
40?
Yes,
Oh,
40%. Of course, Wisconsin officials aren't acting quite as aggressively as the DNR here in Minnesota. Of course, if you read the outdoor news, you, okay?
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
One other thing I want to mention is that the Conservation Club over at Nicollet has gotten together with Jeff Holman. His shop is right south of Nicollet before the new, what is it, Dollar General over there? Each and every, if I want you to tell your deer hunting buddies, because everybody knows somebody that hunts deer, we have now got dumpsters out there where you can dump your carcasses. Come in and we'll dispose of them. We find carcasses at wildlife management area parking lots, lake access parking lots, road ditches. People don't have a place to go with them. A lot of times they're wrapped in plastic, cardboard. The crap lays out there until I come by and clean the shit up. But anyway, let your people know that this is out there for people who don't have a place to put your deer carcass. Okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, and Maria, I'll see you at the next planning and zoning meeting.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, Human Resources. Good morning, Christy.
Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. If you recall, a couple months ago, I brought before you at a workshop an alternative work schedule policy. That policy has not now been reviewed and approved by our employment attorney, Ann Gehring, so I'm bringing it back today for approval. In summary, the alternative work schedules are arrangements to work a schedule other than what would be traditional hours for the position. Examples would include a compressed work week or non-traditional start and end times. They're becoming commonplace as workers struggle with balancing work and family and other obligations, and employers are seeking to add value to the employment experience at their organization. At Nicollet County, we realize that customer service is paramount, so alternative work schedules would only be available to staff in situations where the alternative schedule would have neutral or positive effects on customer service. Some Nicollet counties, a few Nicollet counties, county employees have been working alternative work schedules for years, and with this program, we would make the option available in a consistent manner and to all staff who qualify. So today I'm asking you to approve the alternative work schedule program policy. What questions do you have for me?
Policy is in the packet. Any
I'll
questions?
move approval.
Move
I'll
approval. Second. Further discussion?
Question, Madam Chair. What will this do to attract future employees to Nicollet County, if any?
Yeah, employees are, it makes us a more attractive employer. Any amount of flexibility that we can have is attractive. Things that we learned over COVID is that people don't necessarily have to be in the office to do their jobs well, although that's not included in this policy, and people can work different schedules and still get their work done very effectively and be productive and provide good customer service. So I think the COVID pandemic has just reinforced that these things can work for both employees and employers in a positive way.
And I would fully intend to support this, but it treats different employees differently than from, say, people who are plowing snow or people who are deputies out on the road, right?
That is true. But in my opinion, that shouldn't stop us from offering flexibility to folks where it's possible.
And again, I just want to say, if that creates this disparity, would we be subject to being called on that by those other employees? Just asking.
Yeah, part of the reason why I had our employment attorney review the policy was to make sure we weren't setting ourselves up for those kinds of problems. That doesn't mean we won't have concerns that we will have to address.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any additional questions?
We're good.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is Public Works. Always fun things from Public Works. Keep us hopping, Seth.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board and staff. A couple items from Public Works today. The first being consider award of our 2022 highway striping project. So yesterday we opened bids at 11 o'clock for this project. We received 2 bids, and with updated information in your packet, you have the bid abstract with the results of those bids. The low bidder was Traffic Marking Services with a low bid of $125,278.18. Bids were right around what we were expecting. And so I'm asking the board today to award the contract for our 22 highway striping project to Traffic Marking Services for their low bid amount.
Okay, do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll move it.
Second.
Discussion?
Really creative name from the second bidder.
Yeah, I love that one. Commissioner?
You like these people have given you good results?
Yeah, we've, over the years, it's primarily been two companies have done most of our striping, Traffic Marking Services and AAA Striping. Probably Traffic Marking Services have probably done the majority of that, and they always do very good work. We've also done work with Sir Line's Lot. They do good work too.
Okay.
They did the striping on the County Road 13 concrete overlay project last year. So,
We have a motion and a second. Any additional questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
my next item is to consider amendment number 2 to Mndot agreement number 1045974 and a corresponding resolution. There is a copy of the amendment to that contract in your board packet along with a copy of the resolution. This amendment to the overall agreement, the agreements for reimbursement of preliminary engineering services and expenses related to the County Road 21 slope slide project that we're working on. Of course, this is a federal highway emergency relief disaster project. A little background on this: the original contract was entered into well over a year ago with Mndot, and how we get to actually executing a contract with Mndot is when we have a disaster project that is going to be a federal highway disaster project. The first step is having federal highway approve a detailed damage inventory report, and once that report, you fill in what the damages are, what are anticipated engineering costs, emergency repair costs, and then the permanent repair costs. The first iteration and approval of those DDIRs, usually your information's somewhat general. You don't have all the detailed facts, and so you have just ballpark estimates that get approved in there. And so the initial DDR was approved for initial estimated preliminary engineering amount. That was the impetus for the base agreement with Mndot to get us our reimbursement for those preliminary engineering fees. We got a little bit further into the project, repair work and kind of overall scope of the project was a little bit more well known. Of course, the anticipated engineering costs went up, and so we revised the DDIR. Amendment number 1 was approved by the board, approving that additional reimbursement of preliminary engineering fees. And so last year we went into detailed design and we came up with various options for the permanent repair. At that time, what we were looking at as the preferred alternative for the permanent repair was a fairly high construction dollar amount. And so Federal Highway came back and told us, we want you guys to do some more review and analysis of various permanent repair options. We, the federal government, are willing to pay out more in preliminary engineering fees if it reduces the overall cost of the permanent construction project. And so we embarked on that, and we were able to find a solution that was a bit less than what we were originally looking at, but of course it took more engineering time and of course fees, and so that's where we get back to amendment number 2 to raise those overall engineering fees and reimbursements to the county. So I'm asking the board today to approve this amendment number 2 and the corresponding resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Questions from the board?
You went over it pretty well.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also had a resolution. I don't know if you wanted to do a roll call.
Okay, since it's a resolution, I guess, Sarah, we need a roll call.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is County Administrator Landcamer.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I have 3 items for your consideration beginning on page 44 of your packet. The first item is the consideration of a letter of support from Nivera. Nivera is a communications company headquartered in New Ulm, Minnesota. Nivera is in the process of preparing a grant application to expand broadband services within Nicollet County. Approximately $95 million have been set aside for the border-to-border grant program through the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. The application concerns an area within Nicollet and Cortland Townships. A previous letter of support was provided to Nivera in 2019 by Nicollet County concerning a proposal along County Road 21, the Judson Bottom Road, in western Nicollet County. At that time, Nivera was successful in receiving the grant. Today, I'm asking for approval of the Nivera letter of support.
The letter is within your packet. Do we have a motion for that approval?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Moving down the road.
Anything will help. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I abstained, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, the second item I have for your consideration is a resolution accepting the second tranche of American Rescue Plan funds in the amount of $3,328,661.50. The board approved a similar resolution on November 23rd of 2021, listing the first tranche in the same amount. Total, Nicollet County has received $6 million, $6,657,323 for the American Rescue Plan funds. Today, I'm just requesting approval of that acceptance of those funds.
I move the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Hearing none?
I
Jen?
mean, without these type of funds, we would be in a tougher spot.
It helps pay for things.
And it's helping us in so many ways.
Yeah.
So grateful,
Radios, broadband,
yes.
buildings,
Building.
services. Lovely. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Drano?
Yes. Thank you. Resolution passes.
And lastly, there are 3 proclamations within the packet acknowledging the student athletes and coaches from the following schools: Mankato West Scarlet softball team, the Class 3A state softball champions; Nicollet Raiders softball team, the Class A state softball champions; and the St. Peter Boys track and field team, Class AA state champions. Congratulations to those teams, coaches, families, fans, and communities on a memorable experience. Madam Chair, I'm requesting approval of the following proclamations.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I guess our congratulations to the kids and families. They have worked hard to achieve these goals and had fun along the way. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next on our agenda is the county attorney update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a lot of significant updates other than to note that it was a great weekend of getting out into the community and interacting with folks. I went to the parade on Sunday at Nicollet, and then also attended the Tea and Talk with your neighbors with our Somali friends on Sunrise Drive, and enjoyed some Somali tea and some bosa. So thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the chair's report. I have had a busy month. Let me get my calendar back so I can actually read it. We had the Region 9 full board meeting. I had a Region 9 revolving loan fund meeting, planning and zoning meeting, a department head and board workshop, followed by a township association meeting, the first one in 2 years, and I think everyone was grateful to be in person. Brown Nicollet Community Health Board, a couple road trips in there to check out projects, and life has been busy, so. Commissioner committee reports. Commissioner Lipke?
Well, I took a trip, I got COVID, did make it to the workshop, and did make it to the township meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Morrow? You have the same problem I do. Your calendar's really tiny print, isn't it?
MVAC, same workshop and HHS, same township meeting. We had a ditch meeting, county health board meeting, and also enjoyed the wonderful food and company with Michelle on Sunday.
Thank you. Commissioner Kolars?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had the Traverse Stew meeting, our workshop together, the township together. I have a diversity council meeting later this afternoon, which I'm part of. So I'll look forward to reporting back when we get that information. Thank you.
Thank you. There is also a Mndot meeting in St. Peter this evening. I went last night, wrong night, but I'll get there tonight. Thought there was not enough cars in the parking lot. Next on our agenda is approval of meetings and conferences. I don't believe we have any coming up. All right. Number 13, approval of per diems and expenses.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is the adjournment of the regular board meeting.
Move.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will come back for the drainage meeting at 9:55 because we have a public hearing at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Our agenda is the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is public appearances. Do we have any public appearances that are not related to our public hearing? Seeing none, we can wait 3 minutes for our public hearing to start. All right, and my computer says it's 10 o'clock. So, on to the public hearing.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to kind of recap how we got here today, since this has been kind of a bit of a drawn-out affair. So I'll back up a bit. So on December 17th, 2019, the Drainage Authority accepted the final engineer's report and the viewer's report for the determination pertaining to the improvement project to County Ditch 79. And then on April 28th in 2020, the bid was awarded to Mndot Trucking Company. ISG, the engineer on the project, has now submitted their final acceptance report to my office, and they did that in December of 2021. This hearing was originally scheduled and held on February 8th, 2022 at 10 a.m. At that hearing, it was requested by the Drainage Authority to continue the hearing to March 8th at 10 a.m. to obtain more information from ISG as a result of some landowners' concerns. And then on March 8th, it was again determined that additional information was needed to officially close this project, more specifically to allow for the wet areas to dry after the spring melt, and additional measurements could be taken on the project on the property of Ronnie Cordes. The public hearing was again continued until today at 10 o'clock. So the purpose of today's hearing is for the Drainage Authority to again consider accepting the engineer's final acceptance report to close out this project. Chuck Brandel from ISG is here, and he will present the final report. And if ISG's final acceptance report and final payment to Mndot Trucking is approved by motion, I will present the official findings and orders at the next Drainage Authority meeting, which will be held on July 12th. Again, if the project is accepted, I will also be asking you to consider approving the levy to the landowners for the project by motion. And I will present the levy information later in the meeting. Notice for the public hearing was given by mail to all landowners back in January 14th, 2022 for the original hearing. It was posted January 14th, 2022. In addition, on March 8th, a memo was sent to landowners letting them know that the March 8th meeting was recessed until today at 10 o'clock. Chuck Brandel's here if he wants to speak on the additional information that we were looking for and then present the final acceptance report.
Thank you. Chuck?
All right, thank you. I'm not going to go through the whole report since we've already done that. And Jackie just went through the time frame. Just an update, the original contract was 77, just under 78,000. Actual construction costs were set just under 74,000. We did have liquidated damages because the contractor was 35 days late, which was a negative 14,000. With all of that, we currently have 61.77 and 30 cents, which is due to the contractor, which is the final retainage. Mr. Cordes did bring up some grading issues on the east side of his lot, adjacent to the ditch. Darren Howell from our office went out and met with Mr. Cordes, and after the snow was gone, and did a survey, and that's a handout that we have. And he resurveyed the berm area, the grading area, and the slope to the riprap overflow. And then I reviewed the existing contours and the original grading plan. I've got an exhibit that is a handout, but I'll also kind of zoom in on it here. It has a few pieces to it. First off, it's kind of the overall plan. Zoomed in, the original land in this area had a ditch next to it. This is you call it the hunting, is it a hunting cabin?
That's a cabin.
The hunting cabin. The lake is on the top, so the ditch runs from south to north. There was material that was taken out of the ditch and placed next to it. The existing contours or existing grade had a small berm, averaging half a foot to 8 inches to 10 inches, depending on where you're at. The grading plan widened that and essentially doubled the height of that berm. Looking at how the site was graded, there is positive drainage to the riprap area. It's very flat. The ground was very flat before. Just zooming in, this is a cross section of what happened. So there's section AA and BB. So one of them is just straight east of the cabin, one is just north of the cabin. So when you look at these lines, the dash line is what was there before, and it's hard to see because the black line is what was built, and the red line is what was planned, or at least what's different than what was planned. So hopefully everybody can see that. I don't know if the board can see it all right. So there was a slight berm here, and then we proposed to fill that up, and this is way zoomed in. Each one of these lines is a foot. So it's exaggerated just so you can see what's going on. So we were planning on filling about a foot to 18 inches and then grading that down. That's the red. The black is what was constructed. We did walk the site when the contractor was building this. Myself, Nate Henry, Steve, and the contractor, and we decided to kind of shorten this up. I think what was built is better than what was planned. So we did talk with Mr. Cordes, and put together what he would like. This is what was planned. This is what was in the contractor's bid. So based on that, they built it very close to plan. What Mr. Cordes would like is if this material, and the red is kind of the berm, that's where the material was placed, if that was spread out, so there'd be less of a berm. That's what he requested, and when we met on site, that would work also. Typically, when you do an open ditch, you put the material right next to the ditch, and there's a berm. That's standard design. I did try to reach out to Molnau. They were not interested in doing any additional work. We're not sure if they have any equipment. We do know that equipment was taken from another site of theirs, repoed. And they didn't tell us if they were still in business or not. I did talk to a few other contractors. Nobody was interested in doing this small of a project right now. I put together an estimate that it'd be about $4,100 to grade out that site, to meet what Mr. Cordes would like to see. So, but based on the original plans, the topo, there was a low area here. It does now have positive drainage, though very flat. And in my opinion, it was built very close to the plans. So we could accept the project and pay the contractor. I think the big question for today is, do we want to work with do we want to leave it as is, or not close the project out and do some additional work? Again, I tried to get a bid for it. I didn't advertise. I just made a few calls, and it would have been easy to work with the existing contractor because we had a contract, but they were not responsive. So I think I'll maybe leave it there. We would recommend that the contractor has met their duties and we could pay them. I think the question today is, how do we want to move forward? Do we want to leave the project as it was planned and designed, or make modifications? And I'll open it up and we can have a discussion if that works.
Madam Chair?
Thank you.
So, berms, you talk about like a drainage ditch. I mean, that's usually a field there, and then they have to have an intake from their low spot, tiled in. This is kind of different. This is almost residential.
Madam Chair, if I might, should we hear the public hearing first?
We should do the public
Okay.
portion of the hearing first, so
Okay.
hold that thought.
Sure.
Next, we can open up the public testimony portion of the meeting, so if anybody would like to speak at this time, please come forward, state your name for the record, and speak into the microphone so the recording can pick you up and we can all hear you.
Okay. I'm Ronnie Cordes. You all hear me? Okay. So I'm glad you actually has this section A and section B up there. If you could put that back up on the board for us, please. So now, when we first bought this property, we paid somebody to come out there and burn. There was a little bit of a berm there from the previous cleaning, and we paid somebody to come out there and level that off, which is what it shows on there, your dotted line.
On section A?
On section A,
Yep.
from the ditch partway down to about where section B cuts across here. We paid somebody to level that off so that it would drain into the ditch that was there at the time. So, I mean, if it's a public project, doesn't it have to be put back to what our property was before the project? I mean, we paid to have this done. We had drainage before into the ditch, and now we don't have drainage. We have a berm. We have a pile of dirt along the entire perimeter of the ditch. So I would think that you would have to at least put it back to what it was before. Now, I came to these planning meetings and stuff, and not once did I hear that they were going to put a spillway in, or I would have objected to it way back then. What I was told in all the meetings, and I'm assuming we record these meetings, and you'd probably find numerous times where I was told the dirt would be leveled off on our yard, and the expectation was that the drainage would be into the ditch, not that we'd be having water pooling up in our yard. I mean, that we maintain a portion. Now, I don't care about the rest of the ditch all the way out around the, to the south and stuff, but this is a portion of our yard for our cabin out there and stuff, and I expect at least that to be addressed, that we have drainage and stuff there. The other thing is that you were saying that we have proper drainage there to the spillway. Well, we have pictures of this last spring where there's water standing in the yard, so evidently we don't have proper drainage into the spillway because it didn't go to the spillway. So, there's obviously something wrong here, and I would think we would at least be put back to normal where we were before. And we're not asking for the whole ditch to be addressed, but the part that we have as yard up to from the culvert to around the corner of our property, that be leveled off to where it drains into the ditch. So the reason we hadn't done the entire ditch, you'll see section B, there's a little bit of a lip there. That gradually went higher in the previously before the project. And the reason for that is that we had we shoot from the cabin that direction. So we actually had that dirt mound there, the dirt was raised up on purpose so that we put the targets there and we shot into the dirt behind that section. The other section from then on around the corner was also leveled, So there is a high spot there with the lip, which this drawing shows, but that lip actually did get higher on purpose because we wanted to have it as a backstop, was why we didn't straighten that out in the first place. So, as far as I'm concerned, the project isn't complete. I was told in all the meetings that dirt was going to be leveled, and it wasn't. So, it isn't what I was told was going to happen. These grades on here where the red line is, where they were showing and that we would still have a low spot in our yard, that wasn't presented before that we were ever going to have a low spot in our yard. The thought was that it would be back up and tapered so it all ran to the ditch like it previously did. And, the other thing as far as closing the project today, my previous title before I retired, I was a project supervisor. And one thing I know from that experience is that if there's not deadlines, if contractors are missing deadlines already, you don't take the deadlines away. So if you close the project now, what's to say this project ever gets completed? And also, if it does, they do come out there and they do the work, what if it's not satisfactory? Then how do I address it? So at this point, I would push that we leave the project open, get the job done properly, and then, consider it, closing it.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing. We probably should have invited the beavers to these meetings because they currently have the ditch all blocked up. They dammed it up.
Can you tell me the address that you live, please?
Oh, I live over by Nome, in Bottom Road, 62664 County Road 21.
Does that zero in on this property?
No.
Do you have an address for this property?
We have a fire number, and I don't know what it is.
All
It's
right.
actually, we go through Paul Gieseke's property to get to our property.
Right.
It has a fire number, but I'm not positive what that is right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay. Anyone else wish to address the Drainage Authority at this time?
My name is Henry Bodie. I echo what Ronnie says. Do it right. I mean, you guys are giving county employees a bad name by not doing your job. Let's get it done right.
Thank you. Seeing no other comment, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back to the board.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cordes. Mr. Cordes, the reason I moved back was so I could see the screen. I wasn't being
Which picture do you want on? I'm not sure where you got.
So I didn't want to give you a misimpression of what I was doing.
Yeah, no,
So, Madam Chair, if I could try to
Okay.
distill what I think we've got. It sounds to me, and Mr. Brandel, correct me if I'm wrong, Mole now performed the work according to the plans that were, upon which they bid and upon which were designed. I'm not, Mr. Cordes, saying anything about what you were told in the meeting, but per the plans, is it your opinion, Mr. Brandel, that Mole now performed under the contract?
Yes, I mean, there's a little tiny low spot right by the riprap. I mean, very small, but other than that, yes, they performed to the plans. It does have positive drainage to the swale that we discussed with them, and the cross sections are very close to. They moved the dirt, they just had a little bit wider of a pile instead of more of a wedge. So.
And Mr. Cordes, again, I'm not disagreeing with anything you said about what you were told. I'm trying to distinguish what the contract called for and what you say you were told about leveling it off.
Yeah.
The plans don't show the leveling off. I'm not saying you were.
Yeah, no.
Is that correct, Mr. Brendel, that the plans did not show a leveling off of that berm?
The plans always showed that there'd be drainage to a spot to drain out.
That's the positive drainage that you're
Yeah.
referring to.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I might. So, what I'm trying to understand is when and why Mr. Cordes would have been told that it would be leveled off.
I don't recall talking about leveled off. I think we talked about that we'd have drainage out to the ditch. So maybe there's some miscommunication, but I'd have to go back in the record to see exactly what I said.
Some, Madam Chair, members, if I might, but there was standing water in Mr. Cordes's land, whatever, this spring, I suppose?
Yeah.
Does that suggest that the positive drainage isn't draining?
It's very, very flat from a sloping standpoint. Just zoom way in on this. And it was very flat before.
Yeah.
It's 0.3%. Your standard yard grading on a house is 2%. It's 0.3%, but it was very close to that before. I zoom in. You can see this. This is the edge of the fill. So this slope is essentially the same as what it was. There's a little bit of grading here to get it to the swale. Because like Mr. Cordes said, this is where there was a berm, so it was a little bit of grading that was done.
Right, there was a berm, then Mr. Cordes leveled the berm, it sounds like, but years ago, whenever he did that.
Everywhere except where they put the spillway. We had left it higher where the spillway was, because they put the spillway right exactly in line with the shooting bench.
And
Okay.
And I want to throw out just another point for discussion. This ditch is going to need to be cleaned periodically. This is the bottom. We're going to need to figure out where to put material in the future. Typically, you put it in a berm and you have a designated spot for it to run out.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
standard. And from a easement standpoint, you have a 16.5-foot buffer, and then you have what it takes to construct. If we, maybe designated a wider easement and you did grade this out, any cleanings, you have to spread that material out instead of stacking it up. Because that standard ditch cleaning is you take it out, you put it right there, and you spread it in that buffer. Over time, the buffer gets higher. That's why you designate spots for it to overflow.
Yeah, but if I might, Madam
I'm
Chair.
just saying practically,
One more question.
if we do anything with this, we got to think about this long term, because we're going to have cleanings of this ditch every 10 years, probably.
Right, so Mr. Brand, if I just might, and this is my last question, is standard practice is to put the material on that 14-foot or whatever easement when you clean the ditch. there's nothing legally preventing Mr. Cordes from, again, leveling it, is my understanding. Is that, maybe you can't give it, but he could level it if he wanted.
Yeah. It's an easement. He still owns the property.
Right, okay, thank you.
As long as he doesn't push it in the ditch and down.
Right, not
Yeah.
go that way, sure, but I don't think he's suggesting he would ever do
Do I
that.
need to come back up here again?
No,
Not at the moment.
not at the moment. John?
You'll get,
So, I almost consider his residential. So you would not go and dump, when you clean a ditch, you would not dump the muck on somebody's front yard.
Typically not. That's why we try to keep it in the easement, or you pay extra to haul it away.
That's,
So
I
you-
think.
you could do that,
When
too.
it does happen, it'll probably have to, at least that small area would have to be hauled away. And the other thing is, I mean, you checked, now let's put it this way. If Molyneux did it right, does that mean ISG did it wrong?
I looked back at at least the final engineer's report, and we had a grading plan that had material along the ditch. So, what was approved, this is very close to what was approved. I think what we have is miscommunication on, was it all gonna be leveled off? Yeah, it was gonna be leveled off into a berm with positive drainage.
Help me out.
Versus
0.3%.
it's gonna be leveled off to all be flat. Because I could pull up the.
0.3% is like 1 inch on 330 feet, no?
This area was very flat before.
Yeah,
Um,
that isn't much.
So if you go back from there and look at your
Mr. Cordes,
elevation.
Mr. Cordes, if we could just wait, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you can
Yeah, it's okay.
do this, but we need to have you at the microphone when you speak, and I think right now, we're just gonna have the commissioners asking questions of the engineer.
Okay.
So this, I just pulled, this is one of the construction plans, and it showed that we were gonna disturb area and place material in this area. So it's,
Apparently you guys did not think this was gonna be a problem.
because we had a positive overflow. And again, I walked this with staff, we looked at it, said, let's make sure we have a place for the water to get out, designated spot for it to get out, that's, you know,
Well, 1% would be 1 inch on 100 inches.
correct. But we would have had
This
to
is
grade
0.3 of an inch on 100 inches, that's,
to make it steeper, we would have to grade further up into their yard.
Or
Because the
further-
existing yard was very flat.
or make your edge of the ditch a little lower.
Yeah, remember the slope of the ditch is 6 times flatter than what the yard is. Slope of the ditch almost has no slope to it. So you've got a ditch that's flat, the ground that's flat, and we wanted to make sure we just had some positive drainage out.
But at the same time, you did inquire about hiring someone to fix this before now.
Because that was a request, what would it take to get what Mr. Cordes,
And that didn't happen, for good reason. It did not happen because you could not find people to do it.
but also, it's an additional expense.
Would that be on the landowners or would that be on ISG because they did not design it well enough?
It has an overflow, it has positive drainage, it was flat before. It was built per plan, we had staff out there, we looked at how this was being built. Probably the only thing we didn't do is talk to Mr. Cordes during construction.
Most important part.
Yeah. I did put together a plan to fix it, and if you want to do it that way, I think this meets what you approved at the final engineer's report, but, again, it doesn't meet what the landowner would like.
Madam Chair, Seth, have you looked into this?
No, I haven't been out there.
Okay.
Comments from other board members? Jack?
Madam Chair, I know that Mr. Cordes has tried to speak several times, so.
Certainly.
Should I now? Sure. Okay.
You bring Henry with you if you want.
Okay. Ronnie Cordes again. So, originally, in this project, they were going to load this dirt up and haul it all the way out into a low spot in Mr. Gieseke's field. When we started talking about that, we said, well, it's coming out of the ditch on our property, we want the dirt to stay on our property, because, you know, for obvious reasons. And the distance we're talking about here, it's like 40 to 50 yards. If you look on his map here again now, you go to the elevation, the cabin is on a hill. The hill comes down, the entire yard slopes down towards the ditch, and it's about 40 to 50 yards from the ditch that you get to the bottom of the hill and then it leveled off. So we're talking about moving the dirt 40 to 50 yards to level it off. Originally they were going to move it all the way across the farm to somebody else's property. Now we can't get it to get leveled out over 50 yards. You know, so when he's saying it's not like in the future if you need to do additional cleanings, it's not that big a deal to level it off 40 yards. Because you're going to get to the other hill and you won't have any holes or low spots, as long as it's designed to drain to the ditch. And they leveled off Mr. Gieseke's field. When they got to his field section, they didn't leave a berm on the edge of his field. They leveled his entire field off. And that went out 80 to 100 yards. So, you know, if this was the scope of the project not to level it, they leveled part of it already. The guy that was in the Bobcat was, or skid steer, that I talked to when I was out there for the project, he said he was starting to level it off and he was told not to. Or to stop because they were out of money for dirt work or something like that. For whatever reason, they were doing what they were supposed to do. Our expectation would be that at least we have what we had before so it drains into the ditch. And, you know, and it's not like something I really want to bring up. But if this escalates, if you go, our property line, which is registered with the county here, runs down this ditch X amount of feet straight into the slough. The east-west property line runs along the other ditch straight into the slough and it comes to a corner. So we own that whole corner. It was brought up that it's a wetland and stuff like that. Well, I talked to the DNR what you can do with a wetland. When a wetland doesn't have water on it, we can farm it. So you guys basically took over 2 acres or somewhere close to 2 acres of our property and made an island. And I say it's an island because it is an island. You left the old ditches in. Both of the old ditches still hold water. You put a new ditch in around the corner that's full of water. So we have no way to get to about 2 acres of our legal property. And we were told in the beginning of this project that we were going to get a culvert or we were going to get an access or we were going to get some way of getting over there, and we were never given that. So legally, I don't know that a person, that you can legally make somebody's property into an island without properly giving them an access to it. So if it can, you know, if it escalates or something, that is going to get included into this here situation. Because we can't get across the ditch we have now with anything heavy. We put a pontoon, an old pontoon across it for a makeshift bridge. But we can't legally get there. We could legally farm it right now. We could plow it up. We could plant corn, according to the DNR. But we can't legally get to it, and I don't know that you can legally do that to us.
Madam Chair? So, Mr. Cordes, I want to make sure I understand, because we have the plans that show a berm, and you were told that it was going to be leveled off.
Yes. Yes, numerous times in the project.
Okay.
In the project meetings.
So Mr. Cordes, just so I'm going to have a couple questions, but my first one is, do you agree that in the plans it showed a berm? I'm not saying that someone didn't tell you anything different, but the plans show a berm. When you look at the pictures, do you agree that the plans show that there would be a berm?
The plan shows the berm now, but I have the original ISG plan that wasn't supposed to have a berm. When we had all of our planning meetings, we brought up numerous times in the planning meetings that that dirt was to be leveled off.
And so that plan that you're holding in your left hand shows there wasn't going to be a berm.
Well, I'm not finding anywhere in here that it says there is a berm, but I was at all the meetings when we addressed it, and we said we want the dirt leveled off, and we were told it was going to be leveled off.
And you were told that by ISG?
Yes.
If we could, Mr. Brandel?
I did. I think I said there'd be positive drainage and there'd be, I don't know. I don't know if I said leveled off. I can't recall. I mean, there is a plan, there's a way to fix this. I think where we're at is he would like it fixed. Do we want to do that? And then how does that get paid for? I think that's maybe where we're at. I'm just trying to cut to the chase. Because the more time we spend on this, the more.
And are we talking about a fix of roughly $4,000?
That was my estimate, assuming somebody, it was a rough cost estimate. I do have the yardage. I took what standard bids were and multiplied it by 3 because it's a small little project. So typically it costs about $3 to $4 a yard to move dirt. I used 10.
I see.
Oh.
My question is...
And then standard seating prices.
My question is, you mentioned the original plan called to have those spoils hauled out?
There was a combination of placing spoils along the berm, and then there was actually a plan. Let me pull it up.
So if they would have been hauled out, there would be no berm?
Correct. There wouldn't have been a berm, but like Mr. Cordes said, they didn't want. They told us they wanted their dirt all left there. I mean that was.
Yeah, we wanted to keep the we wanted to keep the dirt.
It's just not graded.
But the dirt was going to be
graded the way he. The way he'd like it. So that's where I think that's where we're at. They wanted to keep the dirt there because there was originally a plan to move it over here. Actually, I have that sheet. It's crossed out. So we had the discussion. So,
Madam
the
Chair.
plans.
Oh, I'm sorry, were you going to go ahead?
No, go ahead. I'm digesting.
Mr. Cordes,
Not
did you
going
have another point to add? I didn't want to cut you off, and you'll probably get another chance to come up if needed. But
yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, could we take a recess for 5 minutes?
Motion for a recess for 5 minutes?
Second.
Thank you. We had a little confab. I don't know if we gained anything, but we had a little confab.
We did, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Cordes, what I was trying to figure out is there some way to move the dirt? I mean, basically. Okay. I was trying to find a solution. We all are trying to find a solution. It's not just me.
All right.
And I was wondering, could the county move the dirt? And we just don't have our staff is so busy, our public works staff, that we can't commit to you that the county could actually literally do it. So I was trying to find a solution. Could somebody move the dirt, get this done? I'm not sure that I think this is a Molnow problem, if you understand. I think they probably did what they were asked to do, which doesn't make it a solution for you.
No, I know.
But I'm not sure that holding Molnow accountable feels appropriate to me.
Oh, yeah, the problem maybe isn't with them.
Yeah, so...
What I will say is that the guy was actually started leveling it, so I'm assuming they were under the impression they needed to level it, and he was told not to.
I can't speak to that.
The other thing is, in no time during our planning meetings did they say anything about a spillway being put in. I was shocked when I went out there and saw a pile of rock in the yard. That spillway we didn't know anything about until the very end. So the only reason the spillway was there is so that you didn't have to level all the dirt in the entire way. You're trying to, it's a cheaper way to do it, obviously.
So, Mr. Brandel,
the problem is it doesn't work.
Was the spillway in the plans?
It just moved. When we were on site, we decided to move it a little bit further north.
So are these meetings recorded?
Yes.
The public hearing portion of it is recorded, yes.
Oh, not the planning portion? Okay. Well, I think even in the public hearing, we talked about it.
I mean, I agree with Commissioner Morrow trying to find a solution. This grading plan would work. Am I being conservative with the cost? Probably. If you found a small local contractor, it'd be a couple hours on a dozer, and then it'd be seeding. So there is a solution. That's one course that we could take is we could pay the contractor, not close the project. So you still have the improvement project is still open, and see if we can get a number or a bid to do this work. That could be one course of action, or you could just continue it. The contractor has not pushed us, has not requested anything. I don't know if they're still in business, but at some point they could, look for interest on this. That's my only concern. By 103E, you don't have to pay the contractor till you feel that their work is complete. So we're gonna, but you could leave the project, you potentially leave the improvement project open with an item to complete.
Well, Madam Chair, we recessed this in March, was it? April?
Continued.
Or continued.
Continued.
And I pushed to go back to June so there would be plenty of time to get everything right. And it hasn't happened.
Well, I just want to defend a little bit. We went out after the snow was gone, surveyed it, put together a plan, and I tried to reach out to at least get a bid and something to bring forward.
You did.
And instead,
Did he have pictures of when the water was standing there?
I have them. I would have them in my phone.
Yeah,
Yes.
he sent me some.
I sent them. Yeah, I sent them to Chuck.
That's what I wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have the pictures.
And our Darren, who can, he's an inspector, but he also can draw these type of plans and survey. So I sent him out to meet with Mr. Cordes, walk through and make sure we got everything we needed. So.
Madam Chair, Mr. Cordes, when you leveled the berm last time,
Yeah.
did you do that on your own, or did you pay someone to do that?
We had one of the local farmers come over. He had a big, a big skid steer, and he leveled it off for us.
And was that a number of years ago?
Oh, it was, yeah, we bought it in 93.
Okay.
So we did it like 93 or 94, and I believe it was probably Steve Reinhardt, maybe.
Okay.
My brother worked with him and stuff like that, so I'm sure he was the one that came over and leveled it off, so.
One of the challenges, obviously, we're facing here is literally finding someone to do that kind of work. Do you think you would be able to find someone who could do that kind of work?
Oh, I don't know people that would have that kind of equipment.
Okay.
It's settled down I don't know how,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I add, I did ask Nate Henry also if he had any contractors that, good, and he said no, at least at the time, about a month ago.
What about your renters?
What?
Your renters, don't they have a Bobcat?
Mr. Halkey?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what, I'm just a landowner that had something done on their property that I didn't like. So I'm not really sure I'm the one that should be responsible to solve it.
No, Mr. Cordes, please don't misunderstand me. We asked the county, we asked private contractors. We're not.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't want to take the option if you felt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
guys,
no,
let
I
me
don't
do it.
have it. I don't know anybody personally that would have the equipment to do it.
Okay.
And the seating and stuff that would go along with it.
Let me, if I could, one more, just, if you look at this sheet, these are half-foot contours. Each one of these lines is a half of a foot, these dash lines. So this is 18 inches at the highest point. It's not a lot of work. In hindsight, I wish Mr. Cordes was out there when we were walking on top of the berm, and we just would have pushed this material into his yard, got permission from him to do that. But that didn't happen, so here's where we're at. But it's not, at this point here, it's half a foot of material. It's not a large project, it's just struggles finding somebody to do it. But you need a large Bobcat or probably a small dozer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jackie, you had a comment?
Thank you. During the recess, I did run back to my office and grab the minutes to the pre-con meeting that was held on June 30th, 2020, and that was with the contractor, ISG, and some various landowners, which Ronnie Cordes was in attendance. Just reading over these minutes that were taken, it said Ronnie Cordes questioned the fill along the ditch in the gray. Station 0 to 10, flatten it out and go out as far as necessary. Engineer Brando stated that that would be fine with them and it should be okay with Mndot Trucking LLC as well. So those were minutes from that meeting that we spoke about.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I did want to share that.
Thank you. Your wheels are spinning.
Yes, they are. Ms. Jackie, could you come back up a second? And I may be asking a question, Jackie, that I'm trying to work out our options here. So one option is we keep this open and a contractor somebody be retained to move the dirt. If we close this project or whatever, does the county have any option in terms of getting that dirt moved that you know of? And if I'm putting you in a bad position, let me know.
No, I think the concern is the additional cost, regardless, well, not regardless if it's open or closed. I think it's part of the project, but who's paying for that? That's the larger concern on who is responsible for that. Should have that been done? Was that agreed upon? And at that expense, according to the specs, it sounds like Mndot did what they were supposed to do according to the specs, but there was not a very good conversation happening between the landowners and ISG about, yeah, go ahead and spread those out, and then, no, now you have to go by the specs. I don't know where that went. But I think, the bottom line is who's responsible for paying that on that project.
Yeah. Sorry.
She's responsible.
No, she's not responsible, but she has a comment, I can tell.
I think the question for the board to answer is whether Mndot gets paid for the work that they completed, which sounds like it was done per specifications. And then you have to decide about keeping the project open, which would probably be the safest course, to leave it open to finish out this work if the board in fact decides that this work needs to be done as part of the project.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner?
I'm talking a lot, so you can cut me off.
Yeah, no, I'm making notes, so go ahead.
So, Mr. Brandel, given the July 2020
July 30th, 2020.
minutes, or their minutes, I assume, do you have a comment in terms of this work getting done? It sounds like Mr. Cordes was told it was going to be leveled.
Like I said, I did not recall that, so I might have said it. I'm not denying I didn't say it. I just
so Mr. Brandel, let's assume you did say it, because I think it's in the minutes, and at least in our official record, it says that was said to Mr. Cordes and others. Mndot wasn't told to level it, it sounds like.
No, I mean, when I got to the site, the day that we looked at this, the material was piled up the way it was, and we walked the berm. We looked at how could we get the drainage to go out. Again, and had a fairly straightforward solution to that, and thought it'd be extra work to push it out. So, I mean, that was it wasn't all my decision, but I was there. So.
Right, but Mndot did it per the specs. Mndot wasn't directed to do anything other than do it by the specs.
They were not.
Mr. Cordes was told in July 30th, 2020, that it was going to be flattened. It sounds like ISG should flatten it. They were told by ISG it would be flattened.
Yeah, again, I couldn't recall exactly what we talked about.
But Mr. Brendo, that's not really to the point. The point is the minutes say this, and it's the only record we have of what was said at that meeting.
All right, I'll just, okay. So there's some dirt that would need to be moved. There would have been some extra seating that
Okay.
would have been done as part of that if we would have done that. So that would have been a project cost either way.
The seating, yes.
Some of that, yeah. And any damages would have been a project cost. So maybe we can work out how to resolve this. I'd be willing to do that. You know, that there would be, if the dirt would have been moved that day, it would have been less expensive. So,
Right.
so
I'm going to argue there would have been seating costs and damaging costs even if it was done that day. It's
Correct.
not
That-
additional. It's
That's what I'm saying.
rearranged.
There would have been additional, because we didn't disturb we only disturbed a small area. So.
So I think
What I'm
there's
saying is some of the cost, we could negotiate how that works out.
Right.
That's where I'm going with it.
Right.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Madam Chair and the board, what I would recommend at this point is that the board make a decision if it's satisfied based upon the information that Mndot Trucking did, what they were instructed to do, and give direction about payment of the withheld funds for the trucking company. And I would recommend that this issue be continued till the next board meeting with a proposal put together by ISG of how to move forward to address this specific issue.
Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, and in continuing it to give specific information and direction to ISG about what points the board wants answered for the next meeting.
Question.
Commissioner Lepke?
Would the landowners be responsible for any more of this expense? Michelle?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would the landowners be, okay, if we pay off the trucking company, would the landowners be responsible for some of this additional expense of getting Mr. Cordis's yard the way he wants it?
And that's part of the reason why I'm recommending that we continue it till the next meeting, is because what I'm hearing Mr. Brandel say is that perhaps something could be worked out regarding the reflection of the cost and an analysis of what cost would have been incurred by landowners versus this additional cost. And so then that information would be before the board for consideration at the next meeting.
Or it just could come out of ISG too if they, you know.
That would be part of the conversation and
Okay,
part of the
okay.
proposal.
Okay, I like what you said.
Go for it.
I move what she said. Sarah, do you feel you've got it?
Yeah.
Okay. I would move we adopt the approach that the county attorney has suggested.
Which is accept the,
Pay the trucking company.
pay the trucking company, accept the work that they have done.
Correct.
Continue.
And continue the issue until the next the next Drainage Authority meeting, which is
July 12th.
12th, and then articulate what information you want to receive back from ISG.
Okay. We have a
Can
motion.
I make
And I
clarification?
seconded.
Can I have clarification? Are we continuing the public hearing to July 12th?
We closed it already.
I think we closed it.
We already closed it.
We close the public testimony.
We closed the public testimony.
However, there certainly is an opportunity for the board to invite comment, should the board deem that appropriate during the meeting. There's also a public comment section that's on the agenda for the Drainage Authority.
Chuck?
I have 4 hearings that day, so I would have to send somebody else, but I could send somebody else. I'm just letting you know that, so you're aware before you.
Madam Chair, am I understanding the motion that is being made that will include conversations with ISG and landowner to negotiate how much each other is willing to pay? Did I misunderstand that?
My recommendation is that there be direction given by the board to what it's looking for ISG for that July meeting, to include an allocation of the expenses associated with the project.
So ISG is gonna have to offer first, or is this board needing to put their idea on the plate?
That's part of my recommendation, is that they put together the proposal for how the work is going to be completed, the seeding cost, the damages, what other costs might be associated with this work, and then an allocation of those costs, and then the board can consider that allocation.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Is there additional discussion?
Madam Chair, I just want to be clear too, are the pieces what I articulated, what the board is looking for from ISG?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Lipke?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolars?
Yes.
Commissioner Drannell?
Yes, thank you.
So we'll continue the hearing until the July 12th at 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
All right.
We don't have any other public hearings or anything scheduled for that day, correct?
We'll also continue the levy portion. We'll finish the levy portion of that as well
Okay.
at that time.